All right, everybody, welcome back to the next episode of Keeping It Real. Today, my co-host is Todd Tremonti of Dallas, who specializes in providing the highest level of service, and he's got a huge team, and he's a force of nature around here. And he's going to help me interview Buster Levin, who is in Tampa. He's with Exit Bayshore Realty, specializes in South Tampa, and he's got a real cool story. He's been our customer for about 7 years. He's leveraging technology as a single agent, so he's going to dig into some of the technology that he uses. And I'm real excited to hear his story. So, with that said, let's go ahead and kick it off. Buster, how'd you get started with technology?
Well, first of all, I appreciate you having me, and thanks to everybody that's come before me, to Jeff Manson for creating everything, all the work you've done, Kevin, Todd, and Jason Samard, you name it. You know, the Brett Bakers, the Mark Martins, everybody, Greg Harrelson and Abe and those guys, and Dirk Zeller. I mean, the list goes on, but just been great to be a student of the Keeping It Real episodes, and gotten my college degree from that. So been in it for a while. Got in 2005, moved to Tampa, got in kind of at the wrong time, but the almost beginning of the foreclosure boom, and just the market was tanking. As I got my feet underneath me, I learned how to do Google pay-per-click, and so just kind of got into internet stuff at that point. Got into WordPress sites, and then was introduced to Real Geeks about 2013 for the conversion side of it, and started creating a ton of leads. I think my first week of having the website, I got a 557 cash purchase by a physician. Just did a Google search, I think, on the address, and popped up. He thought I was Smith and Associates, which is a very nice firm, luxury firm in our area. Clicked it, I went, showed him the house, and he bought it for his daughter. So it was like, hey, this was a great investment right off the bat. I didn't even have my pages done and finished. They still had the jargon on them. And it made me realize that, hey, people don't really care about you or what your story is and that kind of thing. They're coming to search for homes, and they want to be able to do that very easily. And then if you make that easy and enjoyable, then they kind of look like who you are and that kind of thing. But it just changed my view on some things, created a bunch of leads, and then went to like a Craig Proctor seminar one time on a weekend, and it was new to kids. And he said, hey, you got to start a team. You're going to miss your son hitting the home run, in the baseball game, and hadn't got a hit all year. And I was like, I'm not going to be that dad, and I got to start a team to do it. That's what I'll do. And Exit has a system of residual income where you bring in recruits. And so it was kind of like I came back with a come one, come all attitude, didn't have any process in place for hiring people, just knew I could create a ton of leads and thought it would just go well, and I would refer them out at 25% and be making lots of money, and all would be good.
Buster, let me jump in. Hey,
go for it.
Not everybody starts out that easy with Real Geeks, man. You can't be setting this crazy expectation. I'm just jacking with you. No, man, yeah. It's so good to do this with you. Buster and I have been connected for years because of Real Geeks, through Real Geeks.
Absolutely.
Been super supportive of me, and was really helpful when we launched our book, and just has been awesome. So I love the way you started us out. Let me recap that for a second, then I've got a bunch of questions for you. But your gratitude for the unbelievable environment of sharing that happens around Keeping It Real, around Real Geeks, right? You named like 12 people that you've been picking and choosing and learning from to build a really great business, which I love, right? So if you're tuning into this live or you're catching the recording, there's a bunch of other ones that are really awesome that you ought to check out, and we'll keep them coming for you too. Ironically, I think I was on the very first one, and I was 6-7 years ago. I don't even remember how long ago it was now, but there's been a ton of good stuff. And you started out as a student, and now we're picking your brain to share with everybody. So let me do that. Let me pick your brain a little bit. Can you give me, for now, just the short version, like 1 minute on where's your business today and how has it grown in the last few years or whatever? And then we'll start to unpick some stuff that I think people can learn from you.
Okay, a perfect example for me is a team going wrong. Okay, I started this big team, created a bunch of leads. Then in 2018, realized that it wasn't going to work. Came back, what's called kind of whitewash, changed the split back to a team split, 40 for the buyer agent, 60 my way. And that changed everything. Everybody left pretty much. It was down to myself and a couple people. I failed with a couple of buyer specialists. Now it's just me, and I have my wife helping me part-time. She does ultrasound. She does my admin and that kind of thing. But last year it going down to just over like 100 and something of income, and kind of had my, first year below 2 in a while, and everything had changed, and at the kind of bottom and the rebuild. And then I've doubled that to this year, much more on the personal side, much simpler model. I'm glad to not have the team. And so, again, that's been my last couple years history. A lot of self-awareness in 2018, a lot of, 25 books later in Audible, exercise, and just a heck of a journey over the last 2 years and rebuilding my business and doing it the right way and those kind of things. So I don't know if I answered your question.
Is it okay with you if I break that down and explain it a little bit more?
Absolutely.
Because what I hear when you say that is probably encouraging to quite a few people that are listening and watching, right? You felt like a lot of people in our industry do, I've got to go build this big team. That's the pathway to success. A coach told you that, a trainer told you that, an industry celebrity told you that. You built this big thing, and there was some income there for sure, but it wasn't quite the ride that you wanted it to be, right? And right. I like the way you said it. You said, I failed with a couple of buyer agents, right? And I think I know you well enough to know that you take responsibility for that. And instead of blaming a bunch of other people, you decided, I'm going to go a different way. Now, I'm not in any way bad-mouthing teams. I run a team. I own a brokerage. But I also love it when people discover, hey, that may not be the path for me. This other path is the right one for me. It's not a one-size-fits-all business, right? Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it sounds to me like your journey back has been one of keeping it simple, and you've got some good lead generation, and you've got some part-time help, happens to be your spouse, but it's part-time help, and you're running it off the Real Geeks platform, which you don't have to do that, but it's a heck of a platform. So it's working out well for you. So before we get into some of the things you do really uniquely well, would you talk to me about, just at the simplest level, what this rebuild has looked like? What are the simple things you've done and the things you've used to double your income, which was still a really good income, by the way. It wasn't what you were used to, but it was still a really good income. Right. To double your income in 1 year, basically solo with some part-time help. Can, as simply as you can, a minute, 2, whatever you need though, just how have you doubled your income in the last year, keeping it simple, keeping it real?
Yeah, keeping it real. And a lot has to do with keeping it real. It's about the whole make it a masterpiece thing. And I could spend an hour on what that all entails. I got it from my dad. He tracked his daily stuff or whatever, but I was trained by Workman Success Systems, coached by them. It was a point system. I really liked a daily point and activity, the money-making activity. So I created my own system of 15 contacts per day. And from Dirk Zeller, basically that number of 15, but from the different pools of people, my top 50, my follow-up, my past clients, my, my new leads, and my ABC follow-up, how I tag my people in Real Geeks and what urgency level they are. And so working that system and going to the 15 contacts, I started that system in December, and my months were dry this year in January and February, but 90 days after I started my daily habits of those calls and tracking those points and that daily masterpiece, I have my key metrics. If I get 15 contacts and I get my 61 activity points, and hopefully that results in my 1 appointment set, preferably a listing appointment, that's a masterpiece for me. I don't have to have the appointment, but if I complete the other activities. And so stacking masterpieces, daily habits, all of those things, and the repetition of writing those sheets. I've got examples on that I'm glad to share as a Google document. But that daily routine, my morning personal daily victory of the exercise, mind, body, and spirit, miracle morning, Hal Elrod, all of that, that's been the ultimate difference.
Okay, time out real quick.
I was done.
I'm going to give you 10 seconds because I know you got so much to share. 10 seconds. What are the what is the daily plan? How do you, you said you call it a masterpiece. What makes up that day? Because basically, if you're listening, get your pen and paper and write, because what Buster just said is it took him 90 days for this system to kick in and help him double his income, right? Two dry months. So really in 10 months, he doubled what he did the previous 12 months. Is that accurate? Fair to say?
That is.
Okay.
And you see the consistency also of every month. I've done over 20 in gross commissions personally, pretty average for the last 7 going on 8 months.
Okay. So do me a favor. Let's try to compact this as best we can, 30 seconds or less if we can. What is that perfect day?
First of all, mind, body, and spirit, the personal daily victory Stephen Covey talks about. The exercise, that part, getting that done before 8 a.m. kids and all that, getting into the office and having my scheduled times in Google Calendar, my off-market calls, my internet calls, and my top 50 past clients, all blocked in those hour and a half periods. At the end of the day, my key metrics, my 15 contacts, my 61 activity points that comes from the calls, comes from all that, and then hopefully the appointment set. And that's a masterpiece on one sheet.
That was less than 30 seconds. Nailed it.
Unbelievable. I don't think I've ever done that in my life.
Fantastic. I was incapable of it until I started a radio show. And on radio, if you don't, you can keep talking all you want, but nobody's listening anymore. So I love it. Okay. So you can go back and watch this recording and grab that. But what Buster we got a lot more good stuff. But what he just told you is your own, it doesn't have to be exactly his way, but your own version of something pretty similar. And what I love about it is he's pulling from authors and real estate coaches and leaders and other agents he's met and just, talked to, right? Keeping it real episodes, things like that. And he's built this system of mind, body, soul for him. Yours might be a little different, but those real estate activities are not that complicated, right? Everyone can do that right now. You can't do it if you have 0 leads. You can't do it if you don't have a telephone, right? But most people in real estate have everything they need in the year 2020 or beyond to do what Buster just said. The real question is, will you do it? Right? So once you committed to doing it, you did more in 10 months than you did in the previous 12, and you had a good income the previous 12, but it's a heck of a lot better now. You're averaging $20,000 a month or more in the last 7 or 8 months of just following that system. Now, there's a few other key things I want to get into, but what happens on those days where you're trucking? Do you ever push it and just do way more? Or what happens on the days you fall a little bit short?
I do keep trucking on days or whatever, but I've been pretty committed to those 15 contacts, and that being, the minimum. I'll hit it the minimum, but where I falter is I'll do 15 new contacts, and I won't go over to my other pools. My top 10, my top 50, my ABC follow-up, I'll not go to those. And so I'll end up with 15 new contacts from like old internet leads or whatever. And it's a good day and it's a masterpiece, but I didn't set the appointment, and I didn't set the appointment because I didn't go to the right pools. I didn't truly work the system in its entirety, but I'm working on that.
Well, and let's point something out about that. I don't know what's going on with my audio here, but we'll just keep trucking. Even when if you do the tasks, but you don't get the desired result, if you stack enough of those up, beautiful things happen, right? I mean, I think that's the takeaway, because I'm not judging anybody. I've been the guy, right? If you do this, this happens. Well, I did it and that didn't happen, so I'm gonna do something else. I'm gonna get creative and do something new and do it better and faster and with more technology, right? And when really I probably should have just kept at it, right? Like, put in the work and the results will come. If the plan is good, the results will come. And it sounds like that's really what you committed to, is quit changing everything, create a plan and do it. Now you can tweak it every 90 days or 6 months or whatever, but have you made any significant tweaks along the way, or have you been really, has it been pretty much the same?
I've added some stuff to my affirmation part of my sheets that I do or whatever, but the key metrics, and I think that's where it's individualized. You have to determine what your business key metrics are. For me, it's the 15 contacts from those pools. It's the 61 activity points, which come from showings and all that stuff. But at the bottom line, I knew I wasn't making enough appointments. I grew up in the insurance business. My dad would say appointments are the lifeblood of the business. just as they are with the real estate business. Appointments are the lifeblood of the business. Well, how do you make appointments? Real estate is a contact sport. And if you're not making the contacts, how do you make appointments? You make contact with people. And so I was getting a lot of activity points through my coaching program, but I wasn't making enough contacts, therefore not making the appointments. And that's what changed and created this whole system. I watched a Dirk Zeller video one time about the 15, and he said, if you get 9 one day, 11 the next, 15 one day, you end the week. Did you have a good week, bad week, or a disaster? And he says, you had a disaster, because that week repeated over and over. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. And it was like, I'm committed to getting 15 contacts per day. So awesome. I'm learning. I'm going to be the product of my own system to prove to myself that it will work. And I'm on my way to be, I write down, I'm $1 million a year net real estate producer. That's a new little thing on I had that goal before, but I wasn't writing it down. But anyway, for what it's worth.
I'll point out one thing, and then I want to clarify one for people based on what you said. Number one, you had a blank month in January and February, and then after that, COVID hit, and you've exploded your business, right? I mean,
that's correct.
This all started in an unbelievably challenging market. So whatever excuse someone's given themselves right now for why this won't work for them, it's probably not a very good excuse, right? Because March, right when our whole culture, our whole world, our whole globe got crazy, you began to double your income in less time and enjoy it more. And all, we could unpack all that, but for the sake of time, we won't. Let me point out one or two things. You've said a few things that I'm not sure everybody will know exactly what you mean. I believe when you say top 50, that's either one of my strategies or someone else who has a similar one of the top 50 people who are most likely to repeat, refer, and do business with you. Is that correct?
That's correct. The people that'll give me, it's a workman success thing also, but it's people that would give me 1 to 2 referrals over the next year. So I have them tagged in Real Geeks, Buster Top 50. I'm able to click on an advanced search, one button. I can put those into the single line dialer when it's time to call my top 50, and Jed's a millionaire.
Amen. All right. So now a couple other things that will be super relevant to almost everybody listening. We're going to get into kind of how you segment your leads and kind of how you work them and prioritize them as a solo agent, because there's a lot of people that are solo that feel overwhelmed because they don't lack opportunity, because there's leads and places to do open houses and people to call everywhere. But what they're lacking is consistency and focus, right? So I know you've done a pretty good job with that on your leads. So you had your kind of top 50 that you check in with, and then you talked about a couple of different groups of leads. Can you talk to me about what those different groups are and how you segment those a little bit? And then Kevin, if you've got a question, pop in here. But what are those groups and how are you segmenting them, Buster?
Absolutely. And where it started from, I ended up with a team going wrong that had a bunch of Facebook, Google pay-per-click, but a ton of Facebook leads that were, as you've heard Brett Baker say before, in the dreamer stage. They came in, and those guys they're not looking for real estate. They just happen to see it in their feed. They're a year, 2, 3 years out. Well, I happened to end up with 5 years worth of those leads sitting in a Real Geeks database that nobody followed up with. And I figured out the Mojo dialer, and it was like, okay, so that's when we used the Real Geek system, and we marked those people that we had spoken to as in the urgency field contacted. And then I said, hey, give me everybody that's uncontacted, and we dumped them into the dialer. When I have advanced searches built with like 8 criteria, not bad number, not renter, not this, not that. And it sifted and sorted through those leads to give me a fresh list. And I bet there's a lot of people in here with a lot of leads that they could do the same. They're just sitting in there. They know they're not getting followed up. I put them in the triple dialer, and I called them from 8 in the morning till 9, before work, before they would get in. And everybody's calling between 9 and 11, started calling between 8 and 9, and then had them called also from 6 to 8:30 at night. And we tore it up in the old leads. I mean, people that had even come in one time, would come in and they had not been on another time, come in on a property landing page, but it was a good name and number. We've converted them. So when we speak to them and they say, okay, we're this far out, that far out, how we use the system is we tag them we use the A, B, and C's lead management system. Again, it's a not to tout workman overly, whatever, but it's a workman success system that I learned that ABC's of lead management, B is 30 to 90 days out, C is 90 days plus. So I mark them depending on their urgency. Buster, A lead is if you have an appointment with them. So I mark them Buster B lead, Buster A lead, whatever, so I can do that advanced search and pull those up. And that's my column of my ABC follow-up to get 5 contacts from. So that's how we tag them as we've gone through those. And that's where I have the totals of 2 websites that, again, the conversions we've been able to do from lead to prospect is it's like, you know, 50, 60 million dollars worth of business that, again, if we did 10%, one site would be about 350 of commission at 2.5%. And the other. So it just created this big, huge business. And so my 4 pillars are my top 50 past clients, internet and socials, my second pillar, my off-market investment business where I cold call through another dialer, but I bring them into the Real Geek system manually when I uncover an off-market lead. And then I have a little luxury section, but
love it. Let's point out a couple other things here real quick. Buster, it sounds like maybe our live events on your computer or something. I'm hearing myself back through it, but don't worry about it if it's not obvious. But
I don't hear you that way, so maybe it is. Maybe it's my internet connection or something.
We'll just keep trucking. But what I want to point out for everybody, not that I'm brilliant, just I've made these mistakes too, and I want to make sure people are hearing that so that they don't repeat some of our mutual mistakes. But let me ask you a really simple question, and the answer is probably pretty obvious. But if I've got a database with people, you know, that came in 5 years ago, and 5 years ago I said, look, these people are 5 years out. And then 4 years ago they came in, I said, man, these people are 5 years out. And 3 years ago they said they're 5 years out. Well, what's up with this year then, right? What do I do with them? Like, that's basically what you're saying is, look, it's been a while. Sure, when they came in, they weren't ready to do anything, but they've been in there for a while now, right? I mean, it's a dumb question because the answer is obvious, right? What do I do in year 5 when all I've ever done is generated leads that were 5 years out? Well, this is the beginning of some pretty exciting stuff then, right? So all of us are guilty of that, right? Trying to cherry pick these leads. Now, I know you have a system where you've been somewhat effective with doing some cherry picking. So I do want to talk about that, but I think we're all guilty of what Buster just said. I mean, they were bringing in these softer leads for a long time, but now he's going back and realizing a pretty good chunk of them are ready to do a pretty good chunk of business. Now, I'll point one other thing out that I think is important. Facebook leads get a bad name, and I'm out there giving them a bad name a lot of times because I believe in, you know, that the value of what's called search intent, right? On Google, if I type in homes for sale in Dallas, Texas, and a website says, here are homes for sale in Dallas, Texas, I intended to get what you're showing me, and I will engage with it more deliberately. If I got on Facebook to see if my ex-girlfriend's married now, or to find out if my college football team, you know, my buddy that likes the team is still annoying, and you start telling me about real estate, I'm like, maybe I'll check that out, or I ignore it, right? That's a very different level of intent. It's a very different level. When I get to your website, I've got 2 totally different motivations, right? So those Facebook leads initially, and I believe this, initially, they're not nearly as likely to be valuable to me. But if I can get them at a lower cost and they just keep coming and keep coming and keep coming, I sure as heck better pay attention, because over time, a certain percentage of them are going to do business with me. And that's basically what you're saying, correct?
Absolutely. You know, and they are, you would be surprised with the algorithm and everything like that, how you can tailor it to some luxury or to Zillow or Realtor on the audience side, that you get more serious people. The eyeballs are there, you know, and even with Facebook Messenger and doing like the chatbot stuff, you'd be surprised. It's just like people told me internet leads, you know, wouldn't work. And then people play on Facebook all day. I just always kind of chuckled and thought, those are going to be the old dudes at the office that, you know, scoff at everything the young guys are doing. Yep. And then it catches up with them, you know, and they're wondering where their business went. But I definitely feel like there's the fortune is in the follow-up. It's easy to produce them, and that is the lure. They're so cheap. But if you know that going in, and I think we were going to talk about conversion times. Zillow or a realtor is going to be that kind of right now or within the next few months. Pay-per-click has its own conversion time. That's going to be more serious. It's that direct search. I've lived off of that for years, on the South Tampa homes for sale, that specific exact match searches. I became an advertising professional with Google in 2005. But there is something to be said for very cheap. If you're getting their name and number and they have some interest and you just stack them in there, you hit them with the market reports, you've got the right follow-up going, there's gold and then there are hills. There's no doubt about it.
Hey, Buster, when did you get in the business?
2005.
Okay. Well, it's probably too new to remember this. I got in 2003. I'm not in it that much longer than you, but there were times people made really good money in our business calling literally the phone book, right? At some point, regardless of motivation, if we have enough name, phone numbers, and email addresses, we're going to sell a bunch of houses, right?
Right.
And that's
correct.
the most exaggerated extreme, literally the phone book, right? Most people don't even know what a phone book is anymore, but you know what I'm saying, right? At some point, you could call people at random if you don't even need accurate information, meaning you know who you're calling. But if there's a live human on the other end, at some point, if you call enough of them, we can sell a bunch of houses. And people used to make a career that way. We're all too spoiled to do that now because there's leads all over the place. But quality is the problem, right? So what you're saying is, look, there's room in a pipeline for a lower quality short-term lead, right? Eventually, that thing becomes quality because they do something. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about how you're sorting for urgency. You're sorting for the higher quality. So what are you doing to bring the highest quality to the forefront, in the short term, while you're still hustling and following up with those longer term, lesser quality that we're talking about? But what are you doing to bring the most likely short-term transactions to the forefront and call them first, or call them, hottest and warmest, or whatever? What are you doing with that?
I put a top 10 tag on them, Buster top 10, because I came up with a long time ago, before coaching or anything, that if I gave it my full effort personally, I'm going off market for somebody, I'm representing them as the buyer or the seller, and I'm giving it my all and everything I'm capable of, that I can only service about 10 people at one time. So I came up with the top 10 list that, okay, those people, before I go on to anybody else, those people, I'm going to make sure I've done absolutely everything I can to find them a house, that kind of thing. So that's when I make the shift from my internet calls or my off-market calls to my top. The first one is top 10, top 50, and past. That's one pool. I click my top 10, and a lot of times that's running about 25 or 30 deep. It's supposed to be 10, but so I have to go through there. And that's, again, one click advanced search on a Buster top 10 tag. And that's who I'm most focused. And that's who I need to be giving the most service to, because those are the right now, or something's going on right at that minute. And then it goes on from there to the B's and the different urgency or whatever.
Yeah. Well, let's stop for 1 second and then we'll break the rest of that down. But real quick, let me just say to everybody tuning in real quick, if you're tuning in live, especially if you enjoy this kind of back and forth and sharing of great ideas, we've got the unofficial Real Geeks user conference coming up October 20th, 21st, and 22nd this year of 2020. And you can get tickets to that at urguc.com, urguc.com. And the kind of stuff we're doing right now, picking Buster's brain for what works, what's the exact system, what can people go do right now to go make money, build a team, or not build a team, or sort leads, or convert, or get your best ROI. And you're like, that's the kind of stuff we're talking about, specific to Real Geeks, and a bunch of stuff not specific to Real Geeks. So if you're interested in more of this, I'll be interviewing Kevin at that event about the ways that they built and are building Real Geeks. I'll be interviewing people like Buster on, hey, what's working on your team? What are you converting? What's most profitable? What's the script? What's the technology? And a lot of other stuff. So check that out. If you're interested in three straight days of this kind of stuff, head over to urguc.com. That's short for Unofficial Real Geeks User Conference, urguc.com. All right, let's jump
I've
right
already
back.
registered.
Yeah, man.
I'm there, dude.
Yeah, dude. We'll get you there. We'll tear it up. Whatever we can't cover today, we'll drag out a Buster at the conference. But All right. So you had just explained what you're doing kind of with Buster's top 10, which you're fortunate, you're blessed enough for that to be 25 or 30 deep right now. But those are your warmest, hottest prospects and clients that you've determined that through conversations, through quality contacts. So after those people, kind of who do you consider the next level of urgency that deserve your attention next?
My B leads and my C leads, and according to the A, B's, and C's of lead management, the 7th and the 23rd is when you call that week. You call your B leads and you call your C leads. You call your B leads twice a month. You call your C leads once a month. So even though we do set follow-ups within the system, if I've got them all marked as my B's, if it's B lead week, I make one click on the advanced search. I can manually dial them from that list, or again, I can dump them into the dialer real quick and do a single line dial to where I'm not having to look at my phone and look down and dial manual digits and get distracted. I love that just single line dialer, because in Mojo, it feeds in the Real Geeks interface where you're updating notes and everything within the system. It's just, it's much more efficient to do it that. So I jump, if it's B lead week, I'll jump on my B leads. Again, all dependent on if I've made enough my contacts. And so that's how I have them segmented.
Yeah, love that. I love that you're using the fact that Real Geeks integrates with the dialer. Like you could be in there and just click a phone number and dial if you want to do it that way too, which is another really cool tool. But let me point that out real quick. You're doing that based on the contacts you've already had with them, so that you can determine if they're B's or C's, right? I mean, you labeled them B or C based on communication. So let me ask you one more question, then we'll switch to something else. What are you doing with your non-contacted newer leads, right? So what we're talking about right now are people that you've labeled based on some interaction with them. What's your system for someone that was a new lead last Tuesday, but you haven't been able to get in contact with them yet? How do you handle those?
I haven't, everything's advanced search. I have a Buster NC for no contact, last 14 days, last 90 days. Buster new lead, no contact, last 6 months. So if I want to, I can call the active list, but those people may have been on there 4 years ago. I like to separate it by the new ones. And so I'll go in that list. If it's last 14 days active or new, no contact, you might be talking, 50, 75 people, something like that. And so we'll manual dial them. I'll put them in the dialer if I feel like doing it, if the time's right, or I'll do the workflow text, where I do it and send them that, which is highly effective. When we get into that, I'll tell you what we do there.
Yeah, let's go ahead. That's what I was going to ask you about next. Anyway, you said, hey, we set up some stuff that the system does, because we've been talking about calling, right? We've been talking about Buster going to work on the dialer, single dial, whatever. But while you're doing that, your CRM, and you're using Real Geeks, is doing a lot for you. Now, you set that up, but talk to us a little bit about that. Talk to us about your workflows and how you're nurturing those leads without having to pick up the phone. You could be out showing property or having lunch with your wife while this system is working. So what is that system?
It's similar to like an Ava. I was with them for a while years ago, and then we kind of built out that workflow system to kind of be similar to that, where I don't have an immediate response team at this moment. So it's either me calling or this buyer agent that I'm trying to bring on, or somebody calling, but the text does get sent immediately, which I like. I kind of like the one where a guy is using like 2 minutes, but then it's a repeated text. If you don't hear from them a few minutes later, hey, do you mind if I ask you a couple questions? Hey, making sure I have the right number. It's sending them the email also. So that's on the new. So yeah, I can be wherever and know that they're at least getting some communication, and it works quite well. That they do respond. Hopefully we dial them within the first 3 minutes. But then the real deal was the older ones, and then creating that workflow that I'd have a list of 400 or 500 or a couple thousand, and I'd go in and make my calls for the day. And then I'd say, okay, I'm going to group text about 100, 200, 300 people. During COVID, this was very helpful because I'm home with the kids. I can't make my calls, need my contacts. If I texted group text 20 at a time, I'd have to sit there and remember the last one that I clicked, put it in there, and then do it, and I would do it. I'd sit there about an hour, and I could send like 300 of them doing it that way. But man, the contacts would come back. they'd respond, and it was just to basically kind of same as what I'm calling them on the, check-in. If they've been on there, they haven't been contacted. This is Buster Levin with the Selling South Tampa team. Believe you may have been on our website at one point in time. Was just calling to see if I could lend any assistance. Just checking in, seeing if we could lend any assistance. Totally coming from that helpful assistance standpoint, not accusing them, hey, you were on our website, just you may have been on our website at one point in time.
Yep.
Calling just to check, see if I can lend any assistance. So the text was kind of that same way. Buster Levin, Selling South Tampa, just checking in, see if we could lend any real estate assistance. I think I added some stuff, and I can show this, but it's going now, but I added some stuff of, we're trying to clean up our database, real short, but, please reply. Just got unbelievable replies from that. Of course, wrong number, some take me off, but hey, we're a few months out. I mean, the conversions that we got from that were amazing in the contacts.
Okay. Tell us a little bit more about that. What was that cleaning up the database kind of message that converted pretty well for you guys? Or what was the concept? You don't have to be word for word.
It was checking in, and we're just trying to find out, confirm information. I wish I had it. I mean, I can share my screen. I've got a version of it, but I think I took that little part out. But I just found
basically the concept was, hey, I'm just checking in to make sure you still want communication from us. I'm just cleaning everything up. Are you still thinking about buying a house soon, or something kind of like that?
Yes, exactly. That it was just checking in, any kind of real estate, trying to update our records. I think I put also just, update our records, just seeing if you had any real estate, and just a great response to that. And again, it was the text, it was the workflow, it was the text, it was the email. And then afterward, it was, hey, just checking in, making sure we have the right number. And so many people to that second one, just checking in to see if we have the right number, they'd say, who is this? And it was like, well, look at the previous text, but I'd copy and paste Buster Levin with the Selling South Tampa team, just checking to see if you need any real estate assistance. So I had a contact info template I could just hit real quick to that, so I didn't have to type it. But so many of them would actually turn into people at that point. It's like I didn't understand how they didn't read the previous text. Yeah. But they're like, who is this? It's Buster Levin. And they'd say, yeah, we're maybe, 6 months, a year out, nothing right now, but. And then one of the things I didn't say is we do send them at that point. I have a workflow set up with a Google Drive link to a Word document, or a document, Google Drive document, that is our buyer presentation. So if I have a conversation with them as I'm speaking to them, I hit workflow, buyer presentation, boom, boom. And even on the text, I'm like, great, we'd love to help you when and if the time's right. I sent you an email with more information on how we can assist. And so on the conversation, they're getting another, and it auto texts them saying, hey, sent you the workflow, just checking to see if you got it a few minutes later. So really using that system.
We've been testing something with our coaching consulting client that I'll tell you about offline, but basically it holds the presentation back and gets them to auto book an appointment. So whenever we have time, I'll tell more about it, but I'll get the gist of it, just so everybody knows, is we offer them some of the key bullet points. We call it the value stack from our, we don't call it a presentation, from our initial consultation. But we get them to book a legitimate in-office or virtual appointment. We're killing it with virtual appointments right now. We're going to talk about that at the user conference, by the way, urguc.com. That's going to be one of my favorite things. And Rachel Richards, who's another Real Geeks user, helped us improve that. And I'm going to interview her at the conference because she's killer at it too. But I love what you're doing, because you're using the system, the text messaging, automation, simple stuff like a Google Doc or a Google Form, Google Sheet. You're not breaking a sweat for all this stuff to happen. You're also not leaving it to 100% automation.
I love hearing about how Buster's using the stuff that I've been building, and I hear how he's actually taking this thing and using it sometimes in ways that I didn't even think of, being able to use these tools. It's fantastic.
They say people use less than 5% of a database's capabilities. Typically, when I used to work on databases, I always heard that, and it's like same thing. I mean, until you really get into it, there's just so much to unpack.
Yeah, we do have, Buster, a couple people that they want to know everything. They want all your goodies. Rochelle earlier said, can you share the doc you were talking about? I think it had your follow-up plan on it. So if you're willing to share, we can send it out after the event. And Andrew
Absolutely.
wants to know if he can get a copy of your buyer presentation. So
absolutely, happy to share all of it. I have a little Facebook page called Masterpiece Success Systems. I don't sell anything. I don't even capture emails or anything. That is my masterpiece, so to speak, is to share all the great things. I share Dirk on there. I'll share anything I see that's helpful. Tom Ferry, great stuff, secrets, all that. And that's the whole gist of it. I'm not selling anything, but I love to, that's my masterpiece, being able to share all the good stuff that's been shared with me.
That's great. So if you send those over to me after this, we're going to send out to our whole Keeping It Real email list the recording of this video, and we'll attach on there those 2 documents, so you can get those. If you're not on our list, you can go to keepingitreal.com and sign up on there. We don't spam you. We just send announcements for these events.
Love that. All right, let's change gears a little bit here, Buster, because you mentioned that you became a Google ad professional. And I'm sure not everybody knows what that means, but let's take one step back and just say, how in the world are you getting traffic to your website? Now, before you answer, let me point out that this is like a multi-trillion-dollar industry. And for a lot of people, it's the hardest part, right? Occasionally, someone will get a new website built. Maybe it's Real Geeks, maybe it's something else, and then they sit and wait. And usually very little happens because no one even knows that website exists yet, right? It's out in the grand world of the internet, but traffic becomes the challenge, right? We've talked about pay-per-click ads. We've talked about Facebook ads. We've talked about top 50, email marketing, text marketing. Okay, lots of different stuff going on, but how are you seem to be advanced at this, right? So how are you getting traffic to generate these leads that then you have the system for? But where's the traffic come from?
Well, you're right about that. I mean, not to break my arm, pat myself on the back, but I had to do it because of, lack of money to go into it. I read a book called Google Cash in 2005. I learned how to do affiliate marketing. I passed their certification. I didn't continue to do it, but I could always I could create a website on Microsoft front page before WordPress and have it up that night, do a Google pay-per-click ad campaign and have it advertised to the world. I didn't have to wait on a website company to do it. I could have the idea. I had one link called saveonchristmas.com that had a bunch of affiliate links like DirecTV, all that. It was banner ads. And so I was into that. I learned it and just opened my eyes, and I knew I could use it for real estate. As I was doing that versus studying for my real estate exam, like I should have been. So anyway, learned how to do that. And I'm real big about niche marketing, about South Tampa, but in particular little areas. And I'm all about hiring the professional to do like the Google pay-per-click campaign or Real Geeks people. But, I'm all about going lean also. And as a single agent, and, having to pay all these providers to do all this stuff, it's cost prohibitive. And so if, the best value out there, the $230 a month on Real Geeks, and then doing that, and then doing community pages in the areas that you want, and then doing some simple Google pay-per-click campaigns and just that area and homes for sale, some simple ones, keeping it small, going for the battles won in the niches. And I've just always been about creating your own lead generation systems instead of paying the aggregators that, you're always banking on them and wherever they went with their direction. And that I always enjoyed creating my own lead generation system. So I own the pay-per-click market in South Tampa for many years. In fact, I've got an ad I can flip on now. I'll be number one. And there's argument of whether it's better to be number one or number two or whatever. But I've dominated the number one spot for years, spent money, and I was getting leads for about $10 a lead and good leads and all that kind of stuff. And so I don't have it running now because we can't follow up with the leads. I don't have enough people to do it. So it's one of those things that Google pay-per-click, but then the organic side of Real Geeks, getting in, having a domain with the credibility 7 years ago and the organic nature of all those things that are the integrated IDX and all the things that I bought it for. I'm page one on Google for, you type in South Tampa homes, it's Realtor, Zillow, and selling South Tampa. And it's been that way for years with all the algorithm changes. And And I've barely done anything as far as like blogging, done some blogs, I've done some linking, but I mean, a poor job of doing all that. But yet Real Geeks has stood the test of time for that. And I get a ton of, get 50, 60 leads organically from that per month with not doing thing. I have had it SEO'd by Mert before or whatever, but I was doing good before that and a little bit better on some outside stuff. But so that kind of stuff. And then I got into the ad loader tool, and we were dominating. I'll give you some tips here. We were dominating in Facebook on the collage ad, you know, doing that, popping it, property landing page and forced registration. Dude, I lived off that. I mean, just creating leads at a couple dollars, $1, you know, less than. And then it's gotten up to like $5 or $6, you know, now a little more expensive. But back in the day, we were just loading it up. And again, still living off of some of those now. But I find now that the most money, the collage would be great, but doing posts on the page produce a lot better right now for some reason than the ads that I do on Facebook. So I just do a link from the property page, copy and paste it right into Facebook. It only has the one picture, but it's got the property details below and it's forced registration. And then I boost that post, but I find that producing the best on Facebook for me right now, way above if I do a nice ad, best I can do with my work. The simplicity of that, just post it on your page and boost it, and the leads start coming in.
Okay, will you do me a favor and just, first of all, we changed gears there for a minute, and Buster's audience was no longer me or any of you watching. It was Kevin.
Yeah, I'm loving it. I love the collage ads, front page. Man, we're throwing it back to the past. I never thought that'd come up on a
basically just said, "Dear Kevin, I love what you've built." And
we geeked out for a minute, man. We geeked out for a minute.
Yeah. Okay, real quick, let's pull it back just for a second and talk about what you just said everyone could do. Okay, so super quick, take it and implement it. Okay, so you're pulling a specific property link from where, putting it where, and then boosting it how. Can you just three steps? Can you tell everybody, hey, go do this?
Do this.
And they're asking personal page or business page when you put that
business page, because you can't boost on the personal. Go to your website. Find the property, find your listing on there. When it loads up on that property, even if it pops up the land, you know, the info, copy that link, paste that into your business page, you know, do an emoji, you know, brand new listing or price reduced, whatever, some, you know, not too much, couple lines, click for details, you know, a little call to action, boom, hits, you know, post. You're probably not going to get 30, 40 people look at it on your business page, you know, 2% or whatever. Hit the little thing boost, do it for housing. You know, it's pretty easy. Do it for housing and your audience. A couple of tips. In interest, put Zillow.com, Realtor.com, and real estate, those three, and it'll target, and you're utilizing their Facebook's algorithm, and they're very good at that. So those three things, put them in there in the audience, and I use managed placements I use automatic placements instead of managed. Just a little tip. I do it on my Instagram too, where you have the option to select your Instagram page. So I choose it to shoot over to Instagram too. I pick a few days. I usually run them Thursday through Sunday. I'll do it 10, 15 bucks a day, 20 bucks a day, and I'll hit submit, and man, it cranks right now. You know, it really works well.
I apologize if you guys can hear me typing, but I'm taking notes. I mean,
that's Facebook ads, man. You don't want none of that, dude.
You know I don't. You know I don't want a lot of it, but I do a little bit of it.
I wouldn't steer you wrong.
No, we do that. We just aren't doing some of the specific things you mentioned, like the adding interest for realtors, Zillow, and real estate. And we've had some annoyances with getting our ads accepted, even on a simple boost from the business page with the housing category, with the audience targeting. But once you get it accepted, then you can wash, rinse, repeat, right? Basically, once your audience is right for housing category, you're good. But another thing we've been doing, I'll just throw out there, is you go find the crazy highest listing in your market, you know, tie it to we call it newsjacking. Like Derek Jeter put his house on the market the other day. So I went and said, hey, Derek Jeter just put his house on the market for $23.5 million. Here's the most money you could spend in the Dallas MLS. And I posted the highest price listing from our MLS, just like you just said, boosted it and ran with it. And it creates a bunch of engagement, and you're getting forced opt-in, you're getting leads that way. So anyway, for the sake
and Todd and Buster, when you put those ads, if the people click on that, it drives them back to that listing on your Real Geek site, right?
Correct.
So when the folks go there, it's going to ask them, in order to see that listing, it's going to ask them to register, and that's how you get their contact info.
If you've got your forced registration turned on, which I believe you absolutely should. There's a lot of argument about that, but if you don't, then you can't do a bunch of stuff like this. You also probably can't stay in business. But there's a few people that disagree, and they might be in a niche market with a niche that they serve that may be true for. So I'm not calling you stupid, but I feel pretty strongly about that. I just want to say one more time that this is the kind of stuff we're talking about at the unofficial Real Geeks User Conference. So if you're interested in this, if you like these quick tips, if you like the theory and strategy behind it, join us. I'm going to interview Kevin, Buster, and a bunch of other people like that are going to share all their stuff. It's the most generous group of real estate agents I've ever been around. Last year was in person. This year's virtual. Just go to urguc.com, urguc.com. You can get a ticket for less than $300. We'll give you all the recordings. It'll be great. So anyway, keep it going, Buster. Let's revisit your kind of perfect day scenario again, because I think we covered most of that. But if there's anything we didn't cover, that's a uniquely Buster Levin thing that you've pulled from, Hal Elrod and some other places. But what does that mean when you say mind, body, spirit, right? We talked about the daily real estate tasks, but what else would you want to share with people about how your life has changed in the last couple of years from kind of a pretty rough transition to being more proud of your business, more profitable, and just happy about what you're up to the point that you're wanting to share it with other people? So tell us a little bit more about that perfect day scenario deal.
Okay, and while I'm going through all this and the team going wrong and everything, it's like Girls Gone Wild, it's team going wrong. But I could do the movie on it. But anyway, in doing that and becoming self-aware, I started exercising, and I started walking around like the block for about 20 minutes. And then that became, I was on vacation with my parents in Orlando, became like a couple miles. And then I walk between 8 and 9 miles a day, 7 days a week. Wow. So every morning I'm up at 4:30. I'm on a 5 a.m. conference call with a bunch of realtor producers, the East Coast 5 a.m. call. It's a bunch of Ferryites, Tom Ferry guys that, well-known and big producers, probably all $1 million a year guys. And they give a little 5-minute TED talkish talk in the morning. I'm there 6 days a week. They have that little mastermind. And so I've had my spiritual time either before then on my walk or right after. And then I do some stretches while I walk. I call it walk-asthenics, basically that I'm doing some stretches. I'm the guy that you're like, what the hell is wrong with that guy? Doing some stretches above my head and stuff while I'm walking, and I'm listening to my music. Might hear me singing occasionally, whatever. But once I've completed that and I make my turn, then that's when I flip on the Audible. And my goal was 50 books in 5 years. I'm at 1 year, I was at 22 books. And so I'm way ahead of that schedule. But I was turned on to Augmendino through Workman and about the daily habits, and really learned about Augmendino. And I only did the scroll number one. And I repeat that, I read that on a daily basis for the repetition and the auto suggestion, which I know you know all about, Todd. And so I started reading that. I was doing a little weather show in the morning, a little sunrise thing. South Tampa is Awesome is a page I run on Facebook and also on Instagram. About 20,000 followers, about 55,000 on Facebook. And so we do news events, things to do in South Tampa. I was doing a little morning weather show on that, and I put quotes on there from different authors, and I started to look up the authors. Well, the first one I looked at was W. Clement Stone, and they called him the Angel because he's the one that discovered Augmendino. So it like all came back full circle to me. And so Augmendino, Napoleon Hill, what's his name from Norman Van Peel, Vincent, yeah, exactly. Him. I've read 2 of his books, but those guys, like, that's my crew, man. That's, just the thinking and the way that, and I've read Ray Dalio, I've read, like you say, Hal Elrod and Mike Michalowicz. I like Profit Now and all that stuff. But that reading time, by the time I'm done with that walk, I've achieved my personal daily victory. I come home and I meditate I'll lay in the bed, or I'll sit at the office in the dark for only about 5 minutes and just breathe for a few minutes, about 10, 15 deep breaths. And then I just think about, try to visualize and those kind of things. But man, talk about just calm any anxiety and really get clarity. And so at that point, I've accomplished my personal daily victory. And then it switches to business. And it's writing those masterpiece sheets. It's the repetition of seeing. I'll share that on the page that I share because it shows what I write to myself. It says, I feel happy. I feel healthy. I feel happy. I'm full of joy, those kind of things and different affirmations. But that's been the difference. It's all about what you do today. You can't worry about the past and dwell on it. You can't control what tomorrow brings, but you got today. It's a gift. It's being in the present and making today a masterpiece.
I love so much of what you're talking about, but the thing I want to point out, Kevin, you might be picking up something different, but the thing I want to point out is that you've remained a student every single day. Right?
Absolutely.
And you've given credit to like 100 different people on this one deal, which I love. I've always tried to do that. Even in our coaching and consulting business, we've created some unique stuff, but there's a bunch of stuff that I've learned from other people just like this. And I always want to give credit. I think that's the high integrity thing to do. And I really appreciate the way you've bragged on Kevin for building in this incredible resource with Real Geeks and all the people within the Real Geeks world you've mentioned and beyond, and authors and all this stuff. I mean, it's that sense of humility also points to your level of gratitude for all that's available to all of us out there, right? You're pouring books in your brain and you're pouring out the nuggets that you're taking away and how you can share it to help other people. You create a Facebook page you're willing to share with everybody. I mean, first of all, I want to say thank you. And secondly, I kind of want to speak back to our audience and just say, look, this all, Buster was doing some of this beforehand, but this really took off when he had a rough go, right? When everything he had built came crashing down. Like, don't quit, don't give up. If what you're doing right now isn't working, keep doing this. Show up, watch these things, read things, come to our event or don't go to the event, but learn from lots of people, lots of places. Take what works for you, throw out the rest, but there's so much out there. There's a lot of negative things you can say about our industry. And trust me, I say a lot of negative things about our industry because in so many ways it's an embarrassing joke. But then there are people like Buster. There's groups like Real Geeks where I really believe this is one of the most unique and generous groups of people, kind of this keeping it real group. I liked it so much, I literally started a live event based on, okay, let's all get together and do it. Let's expand it. Let's do it for 3 days straight. But all that to say, thank you for your willingness to share a lot of really technical takeaways and then also kind of your thinking behind it and being vulnerable enough to say that a lot of this grew out of what you labeled as a big failure. I can't remember your joke about the whatever you just said, Spice Girls or something that
team going wrong.
Yeah, there you go. Girls gone wrong, girls gone wild, team gone wrong. Yeah. But the point is it went right because it's got you where you are now, happier than I've ever seen you and excited about your business to the point that you're willing to share. So thank you for that. I can't wait. I'm glad you'll be at the user conference because I can't wait to have you contribute in the chat and we'll pull you onto a panel or two or whatever happens, but it'll just be great to have you there one way or the other. So I don't know if there's any other questions you want to throw out, Kevin, or what's going on in the chat or.
Yeah, one more. So Buster, as an individual agent without a team to support you, how do you relax? How do you go on vacation? Can you unplug? If you've got 30 folks in your top 10, do you just let them go for a while or what do you do?
We went on 2 weeks vacation this summer in Destin, and the first week was involved in a lot of deals and all that. We've got an 8-10-year-old kid. And by the time we got home, it was like we really didn't get a vacation, but it's hard because when you're there and you need the money, and you want to be on vacation, but you put a $10,000 or $15,000 deal together. For me, the vacation just became a whole lot better than I made a sale while I'm on vacation, and not to separate from it. But then the second one we were able to, and I am looking at, I know a team is the way. It's the whole get hit by a bus thing, that it doesn't continue. And so I know the team, and I would like to build ultimately a national team under the Homes and Living Group brand, as a team. But I want to do it right with the right people. So I have a guy supposed to get licensed today. as a potential buyer specialist. And that's my first piece, but I've changed it. Instead of getting agents, I'm going to hire 4 part-time assistants, for 1 for each of my pillars, and have them specialize in those individual pillars. 1 dedicated to my top 50, 1 dedicated to my off-market business. And I feel like getting licensed people that are older and sitting at home or something like that can really help me. And I'm going to get myself assisted versus bringing people, teach them everything and hope that they do it that way. It's kind of that Ricky Carruth model where he's making $1 million net a year and it's him and 1 assistant. And, you know, anyway, those are kind of my thoughts.
That's interesting. And I'm looking forward to checking in with you next year. And we'll see how those 4 pillars go and your team, see if your team has gone right by then.
I'll be on my way to $1 million, brother.
That's amazing. Well, Buster, thank you so much for joining. You have a really interesting story, and I love hearing about how you use some of the technology that I've built over the years. And
thank you very much.
Ways. It's amazing to hear about our stuff getting used. It makes me feel great. And Todd, thank you so much for co-hosting, and it's great to have your perspective as always. And Todd's right. I think this unofficial conference is going to be awesome, and it's coming up. So go check it out. And if you would like to get the replay of this episode, including some of Buster's materials that he mentioned on the call, go to keepingitreal.com and you can sign up with your name and email address and you'll get on the list, and we'll also send out announcements for new episodes. So thanks so much, guys.
Thank you very much for having me.
Talk to you soon.
Have a great day. Make it a masterpiece.
Awesome.
There it is.
Have a good one.